The ocean crashes endlessly against jagged rocks, its rhythm echoing a story buried for 1,000 years. High above the Earth, satellites glide silently, their lenses scanning coastlines, forests, and hidden valleys. They are the newest eyes in humanity's search for truth. And now, those eyes are looking for something extraordinary. Traces of a forgotten colony of Vikings in North America, a settlement that could change the way we understand history itself. For generations, children in classrooms have been taught that Christopher Columbus was the first European to set foot on the American continent in 1492. But what if that story was incomplete? What if another group of Europeans, Norse seafarers from the icy fjords of Scandinavia, made the journey across the Atlantic 500 years earlier? What if their ships, carved from oak and powered by fierce determination, reached the shores of the New World around the year 1000, leaving behind settlements that now lie hidden beneath soil, forests, and centuries of silence? The idea is not fantasy, it is not legend. We know with certainty that Vikings reached North America. In Newfoundland, at a place called Meadows, archaeologists uncovered the remains of a Norse settlement. Longhouses made of turf, iron nails forged in smoky fires, spindle whorls used for weaving. These artifacts, dated to around the year 1000, prove that the Vikings not only arrived but also lived, worked, and built in the New World. The discovery stunned the world in the 1960s, transforming myth into fact. Yet even as the winds swept across those grassy Newfoundland fields, another mystery arose. Was Meadows the only Viking outpost, or merely the edge of something far greater? The Old Norse sagas, epic stories passed down through generations, tell us of a place called Vinland. This was no brief stopover, but a fertile land of rivers, forests, and wild grapes, a place where Vikings dreamed of settling permanently. They wrote of clashes with indigenous peoples, of voyages deeper south, of attempts to build communities in this new land. The sagas do not describe just one site. They speak of more, many more. But where are they? Why has no trace of these other colonies ever been found? For centuries, historians and archaeologists searched. Expeditions scoured coastlines, valleys, and islands. Some pointed to New England, others to Nova Scotia, others still to mysterious rune stones and odd artifacts. Yet the evidence remained scattered, debated, uncertain. Traditional archaeology, limited by the vastness of the landscape and the passage of time, could not solve the mystery. But now, something different is happening. Now, the search has moved to the skies. Orbiting hundreds of miles above us, satellites are scanning Earth with astonishing precision. They do not see landscapes the way human eyes do. Instead, they detect patterns invisible to us, subtle changes in vegetation, faint discolorations in soil, hidden outlines of foundations buried beneath the ground. Remote sensing technology has already transformed archaeology in other parts of the world. In Egypt, satellites revealed ancient cities buried under desert sands. In the Amazon, they uncovered lost civilizations hidden beneath dense jungle. Archaeologists now hope that satellites will do what centuries of human searching could not: uncover the long-lost Viking settlements of Vinland. Imagine looking at a patch of wilderness from above, seeing a strange rectangular outline, too precise to be natural, too structured to be coincidence. Imagine following those clues on the ground, digging carefully and finding the remains of walls, hearths, iron tools. The possibility is real, and it is reshaping the way we think about Viking exploration. The Vikings were not reckless wanderers. They were skilled navigators, farmers, and builders. They crossed dangerous seas in their longships, guided not by compasses but by the sun, stars, and a deep knowledge of winds and currents. From Norway, they settled Iceland. From Iceland, they sailed to Greenland. And from Greenland, they pushed further still to the mysterious western lands that became Vinland. Each step was a leap into the unknown, and yet, step by step, they built a network of colonies stretching across the North Atlantic. What drove them? Some say it was the lure of resources, timber, farmland, and metals unavailable in Greenland's harsh climate. Others believe it was curiosity, a restless spirit of exploration embedded deep in Viking culture. Whatever the reason, they came. They stood on North American soil 1,000 years ago. The question that remains is how far they went and what traces they left behind. The known site of Lance aux Meadows offers clues. There, researchers found evidence not of a permanent town, but of a base camp, a staging ground for further expeditions. The artifacts suggest ironworking, boat repair, and temporary habitation. It may have been a gateway, a northern frontier outpost where Vikings prepared for deeper journeys into the continent. If that is true, then the real heart of Vinland lies elsewhere, waiting, hidden, undiscovered. In 2016, hope soared when satellite images revealed unusual soil patterns at a place called Point Rosie in Newfoundland. The shapes suggested possible turf walls, structures similar to those at Lance aux Meadows. When archaeologists investigated, they discovered signs of ironworking, a hearth used to roast bog iron. Excitement spread quickly. Could this be the second confirmed Viking site in North America? For a time, it seemed the answer was yes. But further excavations yielded ambiguous results. The evidence was inconclusive, the debate unresolved. Still, the discovery showed the potential of satellite archaeology. Even the possibility electrified the world. And so the search continues. Modern satellites, equipped with high-resolution cameras, infrared sensors, and radar, sweep across vast areas of Canada and the northeastern United States. They capture details that would take lifetimes to map on foot. They reveal faint lines, shapes, and shadows beneath the soil, ghosts of structures that may have stood 1,000 years ago. Each new anomaly is a potential doorway into the past. What lies waiting under the forests of Nova Scotia, where rumors of Viking camps have circulated for generations? What secrets are buried along the coast of New Brunswick, where rivers empty into the Atlantic, offering perfect harbors for longships? What clues might lie in New England, where the climate is warmer, the grapes of the sagas could grow, and the land would have seemed rich and inviting to Norse explorers? The satellites are watching. The archaeologists are listening. And history itself may soon speak. If we find more Viking settlements, it will not just confirm what the sagas described. It will rewrite the history of the Western world. It will mean that Norse explorers were not merely visitors, but settlers who tried, perhaps for decades, to carve out a life in America. It will mean that the first meeting between Europe and the Americas happened not in 1492, but centuries earlier, when Vikings and indigenous peoples encountered one another on the shores of Vinland. The sagas describe those encounters vividly. They speak of trade, of gifts exchanged, red cloth, milk, weapons. They also speak of violence, of arrows and axes, of fear and retreat. For the Vikings, Vinland was both promise and peril, a place of opportunity and danger. Did they abandon it because of conflict? Or did climate shifts, isolation, and the sheer difficulty of sustaining a colony across the Atlantic doom their efforts? The answers lie buried still, waiting for discovery. The satellites cannot answer every question, but they can point the way. They can lead archaeologists to the right places, the hidden corners where traces of fire pits, wooden beams, and iron tools might still linger. They can bridge the gap between legend and evidence, between saga and science. And so, the eyes in the sky continue their silent vigil. Each orbit brings them over new coastlines, new forests, new lands where the past hides beneath the surface. Each image brings us closer to the truth. The Vikings came here, that much we know. The question now is, how much of their story remains waiting, buried, just out of sight? The search for these hidden colonies has taken archaeologists beyond Newfoundland, deeper into the landscapes that the sagas describe. When the Norse wrote of Vinland, they spoke of a land of grapes, a place rich in resources unlike the harsh climates of Greenland. Newfoundland, while significant, does not fit this description completely. Its climate is too cold, its soil too harsh for grapes to grow wild. To find Vinland, one must look further south, and that is precisely what the satellites are doing. Imagine the coastlines of Nova Scotia, rugged and windswept, yet filled with sheltered coves where longships could have landed. From the air, satellites have identified subtle traces in the earth, rectangular shapes, discolorations, and formations that could be remnants of turf houses. These images are passed on to archaeologists, who then walk the land, probing the soil, searching for any artifact that might connect the dots between legend and reality. Each time, the possibility hangs in the air. Could this be the place where the Vikings once built their homes? New Brunswick, too, carries its mysteries. Its river systems offered natural highways into the interior of the continent, perfect routes for explorers seeking timber, farmland, and trade. Indigenous oral traditions tell of encounters with strangers arriving from the sea, men with strange weapons and ships unlike anything they had seen before. Are these stories fragments of real contact with the Norse? The thought lingers, waiting for evidence. Satellites can help by showing where old riverbanks hold shapes of forgotten camps, or where ancient fires left chemical signatures in the soil. Further south, the land becomes warmer, greener, more like the fertile paradise the sagas described. In Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and even as far as Connecticut, researchers have long debated whether the Vikings could have reached these shores. Grapes grow here, and forests stretch inland, filled with the kind of resources that would have seemed priceless to Norse settlers struggling in Greenland's icy grip. If they truly made it this far, the challenge is finding the proof. And now, high above the Atlantic coast, satellites scan tirelessly, their instruments capable of detecting the faintest hints of buried walls, old roads, or abandoned hearths. The technology driving this search is extraordinary. Unlike the human eye, which sees only visible light, satellites can peer into the infrared spectrum, detecting differences in vegetation health caused by what lies beneath the ground. A buried stone wall, for example, can stunt plant growth above it. A long-forgotten fire pit can enrich the soil, causing the grass to grow greener in certain patches. To us, these are invisible. To the satellites, they are clues that can be pieced together into maps of hidden worlds. LiDAR, another tool, has revolutionized archaeology in recent years. From aircraft or satellites, LiDAR beams pulses of laser light across landscapes, stripping away vegetation and digital models to reveal what lies beneath. It has uncovered Mayan cities in the jungles of Central America, thousands of structures invisible to explorers on the ground. If LiDAR can unveil lost civilizations hidden beneath dense rainforest, imagine what it could reveal in North America's forests and valleys. Perhaps the faint outlines of Viking longhouses, the ridges of fortifications, the trails of footpaths worn 1,000 years ago. The saga stories provide hints. They tell of battles with indigenous peoples, of settlers who tried to build farms, of a land where resources seemed abundant but danger was constant. Archaeologists and indigenous historians alike recognize that if these encounters occurred, they represent one of the earliest moments of contact between two worlds that would later collide so dramatically in history. The satellites may yet find the physical evidence that supports these ancient stories. Weapons buried in the soil, shards of Norse pottery, fragments of tools forged in Viking fires. But the challenge remains immense. The Vikings were not builders of stone castles or massive monuments. They built with wood, turf, and earth. Their settlements, after 1,000 years, would be faint, fragile, nearly erased by time. That is why satellites, with their ability to detect the nearly invisible, are such powerful allies. What would be impossible to find by walking the land might be revealed in a single scan from orbit. There are skeptics, of course. Many archaeologists caution against interpreting every anomaly as a Viking site. Nature, after all, produces strange shapes. Old farms from later centuries can leave traces that resemble much older structures. False positives are common, but the beauty of this technology is that it provides direction. It narrows the search. It tells archaeologists where to look, saving years of blind exploration. Even if 9 sites prove false, the 10th could hold the answers. The case of Point Rosie remains a symbol of both hope and caution. At first, the satellite images seemed to suggest a Viking outpost, a tantalizing lead that captured headlines around the world. Excavations uncovered signs of iron smelting, and the excitement grew. Yet, with further digging, the evidence did not hold. The hearth that seemed promising may not have been Norse at all. Some dismissed the discovery, while others argued that the evidence was simply too fragmentary to judge. But what Point Rosie truly proved was that the technology worked. It could find anomalies worth investigating. The process may lead to dead ends, but it also keeps the dream alive that one day, one of these anomalies will reveal the undeniable truth. For those searching, every satellite pass over the Atlantic coast is filled with anticipation. They pore over the images, pixel by pixel, looking for anything that stands out from the natural landscape. They overlay maps of Viking routes, currents, and wind patterns, imagining how a Norse captain would have chosen a harbor, where he would have built a shelter, where he would have forged his tools. The past and present converge, science and imagination working together to uncover what lies hidden. And so, the search spreads across eastern North America. In Canada's Maritimes, in New England's coasts, even in the interior where rivers beckon explorers inland, satellites continue to scan, their silent gaze peeling back layers of time. The promise is clear. One day, a pattern will emerge too perfect, too distinct to ignore. One day, a forgotten Viking settlement may rise again from beneath the soil, its story finally told after 1,000 years of silence. As the satellites continue their endless watch, the question grows louder. What will we find when the hidden truths of Vinland finally emerge? If more Viking settlements are uncovered, they will not only confirm the sagas, but also transform the narrative of global history. The image of Columbus as the first European to reach the Americas will forever shift. Instead, history books will tell of Norse sailors who braved the Atlantic 5 centuries earlier, men and women who carried their hopes and fears across an ocean, planting the seeds of a story that has remained buried until now. The implications stretch even further. To find new Viking sites would mean acknowledging that cultures collided far earlier than once believed. It would mean understanding that indigenous peoples had contact with Europeans long before the great age of exploration. It would force us to rethink not only the history of discovery, but also the deep, complex roots of human connection, conflict, and exchange. Every discovery carries with it not just the past, but also lessons for the present. And so the hunt continues, not with swords or sails, but with satellites and science. Where once Viking longships cut through the waves, now beams of light cut through forests and soil. Where once explorers stared into the horizon, today researchers stare into streams of data, images that could hold the key to one of history's greatest mysteries. Perhaps, even now, under a farmer's field in Nova Scotia, under a stretch of forest in Maine, or beneath the sands of a New England beach, the remains of a longhouse sleep quietly. Perhaps iron tools still lie hidden, rusting in silence, waiting for the day when sunlight and human hands will lift them back into the world. Perhaps the stories told in sagas, of grapes, of rivers, of fierce battles and fragile peace, are not just legend, but echoes of real lives lived 1,000 years ago. It is fitting, in a way, that satellites, symbols of our modern age, machines born of human curiosity and invention, are now helping us rediscover the explorers of another age, people who shared that same restless drive to push beyond the horizon. In both eras, the impulse is the same: to see what lies beyond, to seek the unknown, to uncover what waits in distant lands. The Vikings may have left North America long ago, their colonies fading into memory, their ships never returning. But their story is not finished. It lingers in the soil, in the forests, in the rivers. And now, with the help of satellites, that story is beginning to stir once more. So, when we ask the question, Can new satellite technology uncover a 1,000-year-old Viking settlement in America? The answer is not just about archaeology. It is about who we are, about the hunger to know where we came from, and the unyielding human drive to uncover the truth. One day soon, perhaps, the satellites will guide us to the proof we have long sought. And when that day comes, history will open its eyes once more, and the world will see the Vikings not as shadows of legend, but as pioneers whose footsteps crossed the shores of America long before Columbus ever set sail.